Yeah, some days I feel unfazed, like when I'm with my friends with a cup raised. Come Monday, I got a gun raised, suicidal do or die until hump day. Then I go right back at it like an automatic. More drinks, more songs, more beats to rap. I need a shrink, I'm gone, more time keeps passing. No watch, no thoughts at all, just a hat, new era. Rep my P's and those O's, need the Phillies with the orange and black to feel home. From Citizens Bank back to Camden Yards, it's a tale of two cities, and trust we go hard. Trust we go hard, yes we go hard. You said we go hard, I said we go hard. Rockin' my Bob Cousy, stocking up on the loose. The lyrics come easy, but the life is a doozy. And yes, I'm choosy, and no, I won't settle, but I still take pop off over that kettle, cause I'm talking bigger picture. And yes, I'm gonna hit you with the...
Naruto decides to open the scrolls he was gifted to by Ebisu, and it turns out it's in-depth explanation of a jutsu they're about to have as their finale. So Naruto would spend a lot of time practicing this jutsu, and when the day of the exam came up, Naruto would more or less have it down. So most of the kids also practice it by what Iruka taught them, and are all beyond Genin level, but that's not gonna be it. Naruto would obviously be the last to be called on after every other kid would successfully perform the body flicker to teleport a few feet forward, and Naruto feels a little cocky. So what he would do is he'd use his body flicker to teleport behind Iruka and try to throw a fist at him, but Iruka would be suspecting it, grab him, but Naruto would also not be done. He'd quickly use the body flicker once again to get in front of Iruka and kick him right in the nunu. So Iruka would be in pain because of him getting knocked there, and would crumble to his knees. Naruto would ask if he passed, and Iruka would say, "Yeah, you got full marks on the jutsu, Naruto. Good for you." As he fell on the ground, passing out, because that was a really hard kick, especially that the motion was increased by the body flicker. So Mizuki would end up taking Iruka to the basically medical center of the academy, and then coming back to award kids their headbands. You'd see that Sasuke would be pissed that Naruto is that far ahead of him, and the only thing Naruto is really lacking in is academics. He would study enough to get a perfect pass, which is a 50 exactly, and in all the other areas he would excel, which makes Sasuke mad because basically Naruto's number 3, but not by far. If Naruto just put a little more time into studying, he would probably beat Sasuke any day, which Sasuke would acknowledge. So Mitsuki would take this to his advantage to have Sasuke steal the Scroll of Sealing, which Sasuke would fall for because he'd explained that in the Scroll of Sealing there are jutsu stronger than any other that could make a shinobi beyond Kage level. Sasuke would fall for this, wanting to defeat Itachi, and Mitsuki would also know Orochimaru always wanted Itachi, so he'd attempt to get Sasuke to come with him, but when Sasuke refuses and Iruka shows up, Naruto is also sure to appear with his two friends who had graduated the previous year. This is Tenten and Lee, who are both much stronger than they were the previous year. Training with Guy was a lot different because of Tenten needing to learn how to basically do everything and keep up with Lee and Neji, Lee having unlocked up to the 38 and being the fastest person in the leaf other than Guy himself. They'd confront Mizuki and he would think that Iruka couldn't defeat me, what do y'all have a chance? Because Iruka is there. Naruto would see Iruka on the ground having taken a giant kunai for Sasuke. He'd basically say, "You really did that to my sensei, didn't you?" Naruto would channel his chakra into his sword, which would create a giant red aura around the sword, which would also put bright orange aura around Naruto. This would be the sword's first ability. It would channel the nine-tailed chakra within Naruto to resonate with the chakra of the sword, which would not only increase the sword's sharpness, durability, and overall handiness, but also Naruto's. So Naruto would get a lot more dangerous. Naruto, knowing the body flicker as his last jutsu, would basically just zoom around Mizuki, creating semi-clones. Not actual clones, but more or less the clone technique per se, as he's using the body flicker. Amping it with the nine-tailed chakra would solidify these clones, and they'd be able to actually hit Mitsuki. They aren't exactly shadow clones, but they're a close fit. As he's doing this, or as the clones are just hitting Mitsuki and keeping him busy, Naruto would have a sneak peek at the scroll, which is laying open behind the tree. Sasuke was trying to learn a technique called the Dragon Fire Jutsu, but right next to it is another jutsu called the Shadow Clone. Naruto would see that it's only one hand sign and has a similar formula to the clone jutsus, so all he really had to do was replace the clones that would disperse from hitting someone with these, and it should get a lot better. Naruto would do so, the clones now replaced. Mitsuki wouldn't really realize, but they started moving in. Mitsuki would prepare a swipe of his hand as one clone would grab him. He'd be confused. Another clone would grab him, and thus he'd be held down. Naruto would say, "Oh, that was easy." He'd hold up his sword, still in a bursting Nine Tails aura from both of them, lunging forward with a body flicker, only to enhance his speed and not to teleport him, to shove the sword into Mitsuki's stomach. Mitsuki would not die, but he would be arrested by the Anbu in a severely injured state, having us continue to the modern day series. Naruto would now be given a week off before he had to meet his sensei. Sasuke still struggling, but he did get the basics of this Dragon Fire Jutsu down. He thinks that this jutsu would have him pull ahead of Naruto and maybe even kill Itachi one day. But this could be further from the truth. Naruto in this 1 week time would basically just practice his new jutsu, which is the clone technique or the shadow clone technique, and would even learn how to make more and more, redubbing it the multi-shadow clone jutsu. So basically after he just spent a week on this purely, he'd return to the academy where he'd be introduced to his team, which is Sasuke and Sakura. He'd just stay there, and eventually Kakashi would show up, just as late as usual. Naruto, not being as childish, but still as childish, would this time prepare to launch his sword at the Jonin, which he does. He doesn't only just, stab him, he just throws the sword at him. Kakashi would dodge it, but didn't know that Naruto had another ability. Naruto would hold up his hand, channeling chakra, and thus the sword would start coming back. Kakashi would be barely to duck, cutting off a piece of his hair as Naruto caught the sword. Says, "Oh, okay, you are pretty skilled if you could dodge that." Kakashi would say, "You're trying to kill me on the first day? Okay, meet me on the roof." He'd poof away, being a shadow clone. Everyone would be confused except Naruto, for he has been learning this technique literally the last week, and even discovered that memories you get from the clones would be retained within yourself. He discovered this when he sent one of his clones to the shop to get him some stuff, and when he came back and dismissed it, he remembers some conversations the clone would have had, which was kind of weird at first, but he decides he would adapt to it. For now, Naruto is gonna just do Naruto's thing and basically go up to the roof. On the roof, there would be a different conversation. Kakashi would go, "Pinky, you go first, introduce yourself." She'd ask Kakashi to introduce himself first as an explanation. Kakashi would say, "My name is Kakashi Hatake. My skill set is none of your business. My hobbies are none of your business. And my quest for the future is none of your business. Now you go." Sakura would be a little down that Kakashi didn't really tell them anything, but she'd still go for it. She'd basically say that she wanted to marry Sasuke like originally because she a simp. She's always going to be a Sasuke simp, with Naruto not actually liking her in this one, which is actually pretty good. And this would kind of annoy Kakashi, but he'd move on to Sasuke. Sasuke would rant on about his speech about how he wants to restore his clan and kill a certain someone, which is his brother Itachi, who murdered his clan. Kakashi, not expecting a lot from this group, would then just look at Naruto and point at him to go, because at this point Kakashi's really annoyed, but Naruto wouldn't cease to amuse. Naruto would say, "As the sword of the hidden leaf, I will become the next Hokage. I will defend its people with all my might and slay its enemies." Kakashi would say, a little over dramatic and knightish, but we could break that out of him. "Okay, so meet me at training ground 7 in a few hours, which is going to be tomorrow. Do not eat because you will puke." And then Kakashi would disappear. Naruto would say okay and just jump off the side, preparing his new shinobi uniform, which is gonna be dope as shit. You already know. So Naruto at this point would basically just say okay and go home to prepare for the next day. And you know that next morning he finna eat because Naruto ain't no stupid nun.